Now we're going to put everything together. So we want to look at equations that will have a vertical shift, an amplitude change, a phase shift, and maybe a period change. So let's figure out what we have. We have y equals minus 3 plus 2 times cosine x. So do I have a vertical shift? Well, I've subtracted a 3 on the outside of the function. So we do have a vertical shift, and that will be down 3 units. So that means that the middle of our graph will now be at y equals negative 3. The amplitude, that's the value that's multiplied times the front of the function. It looks like we have multiplied a 2 times the front of the cosine function, so the amplitude is 2. We have not added or subtracted or multiplied anything times the inside of the function. It's just plain x. So there is no phase shift, and the period will remain 2 pi. Since the period and the phase shift are remaining unchanged from the original, the input of the function is just x. So when I'm going to find the starting and the endpoint, well, it's still just 0 and 2 pi as my starting and endpoint values. And we know what the midpoint values would be. Just the usual 0 to 2 pi and pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2. So that tells us that our y-axis is right there. Now the middle of our graph has been shifted down to minus 3. So let's put that new middle in. So we're down at negative 3 for the new middle of our graph. I'm going to put a dotted horizontal line here to remind us that y equals negative 3 is the new middle of the graph. So we've taken care of the x values, we've taken care of the middle. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to draw the cosine basic shape, and we're going to use an amplitude of 2. So that means that from the middle I need to go up and down 2 units from the middle. And we're talking about cosine, so we need to remember our basic shape for cosine with an amplitude of 2. So cosine, if this is the middle of my graph, cosine starts at the max. So we're going to go up 2 units from the middle. So here's the max. At the second point, we're going to come down to the middle of the graph. At the third point, we're going to be down at the min. We're going to go 2 units down from the middle, because my amplitude is 2. At the fourth point, we're going to come back to the middle of the graph. And at the fifth point, 2 pi, we're going back to the max, which is at negative 1. Draw the cosine wave. And notice our amplitude is 2 units from the bottom to the middle, 2 units from the middle to the top. So there was our graph of y equals negative 3 plus 2 times cosine x, graphed over a 1 period interval. Keep in mind that what we're doing is first finding the x values and all the midpoints when we go to graph. We're drawing a dotted horizontal line to represent the new middle of our graph. And remember that the vertical shift determines the new middle. Then we're going to draw in the basic shape for sine or cosine, and the amplitude tells us how high to go up from the middle of the graph and how low to go from the middle of our graph.